Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to Uniting Against Violence. We are a group of parents who've come together to create a podcast for parents and anyone else who's concerned with serious youth violence and wants to take action to produce it. Our group is a mix of parent champions and ambassadors from London's Violence Reduction Unit and the Parent House, a charity based in Islington. I'm Charlotte and today we're focusing on mental health and trauma. We'll be looking at what trauma and mental health is, the impact that it has on people, our communities and what we can do about it. Our guest speakers this week are Mitchelle Greenaway.
Hi.
A counsellor and founder of Jigsaw GC, which helps young people make positive choices to reduce violence. We also have Addy.
Hi.
Who founded Men in Motion, a community group from helping men build community and reduce loneliness. And Ashleigh Jackson, one of our parent champions and ambassadors and a mental health first aider. So thanks for joining us all today. How's everyone doing?
Yeah, we're good.
So I'm going to go to you, Mitchell. Would you just like to tell me a little bit about what you do?
Okay, so what don't I do? Okay, so I co-found a community interest company. I'll start with that, called Jigsaw Get Connected, where we work with young people and families across London. Within that, we put mentors and counsellors in schools, and then we run interventions and workshops in the community. So we're just trying to give young people experiences that shows them there's more than the bubble they're in. And we work with families as well, so parents, because one of the things is people put the support in for the children, but actually parents need that same support, because when the child leaves us, they can be great, but then they're still going home. And then if we can give the parents the skills to then support their child and also be supported, that then creates a different environment. So I'm a therapist within Jigsaw, but as also a mentor. And then I'm a life coach, but I do that outside of that. So
brilliant. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Kyle, what about yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do.
I run various projects. So I run a men's group, which is a weekly men's group for men of all backgrounds, nationalities, races, to come together and just talk about issues that affect us, our families and our communities. It's a safe space, so whatever your opinion, your view of something is your opinion. I can't tell you that you're wrong or right for it. That's your own experience. I also run children's workshops, children's and adults workshops, where I teach them jury making and basic woodwork skills. And I'm now just about to start up a young boys mentoring program where I've had a few families that have seen what I do ask me to do extra curriculum with their children. So these are like single parent families that the sons don't have no role models in their life. Yeah. So I would then take them off and do certain activities with them, take them bike riding, roller skating, whatever the case may be. Something that the mum wouldn't normally do with them.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of stuff like that for a young family.
It's taken for me.
Ashleigh, how about yourself?
So right now I do voluntary work for the Parent House. I do peer mentoring level 3. I'm trying to do 4 different businesses, which is facials, massaging, and then psychotherapy and counselling. And then I am a part of the Violent Reduction Unit Parent Champion. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to establish a charity business through the Violent Reduction Unit, which is based in Islington Council, to kind of give back to other parents that may not know where to signpost. So we signpost them, and we're trying to also get into schools so that we can also do workshops and interventions.
That's really amazing. Like, we have got a lot of skills and a lot of love in this room. I'm really feeling it. So what we were talking about is mental health, yeah? So in your experience, what is trauma and mental health? I'll put it to you, Mitchell.
Okay. What is trauma and mental health? So I suppose let's start with mental health. It's such a broad word and it's quite a scary word. Mental health is about, I like to say well-being, and it's different scales of well-being, because mental health for me is more when it's diagnosed in regards to maybe schizophrenia, like those high-end illnesses. Whereas a lot of people see mental health and think everyone's got mental health different ways. So it's like a well-being scale. And depending on where you are within your well-being, it might be like more intense. So it might be that emotionally you're not doing very well. So it creates anxiety, those kind of things. And then sometimes you could be at a different scale where you're feeling great, you're feeling good. And it's just different points of what's going on for your well-being and what's going on in your life.
I think that's a great way to explain it. Okay, so what kind of impact does trauma have on families and young people? Ashleigh, I'll ask you that question.
I think that it takes a big impact on them, to be honest with you, because if the child is unaware at the time that there is a hefty situation that's going on within their family, and as they get older, they realise that there's secrets or whatever that could be in their family, and then they realise that that's taken a toll on their body, that mental health. They're not realising it when they get older into like working life, that they're taking on these traumas. Yeah. So like you said about anxiety, not realising that you're struggling with that, not realising the identity of the method of that. So you're then realising, okay, as I get older, I'm dealing with this, not realising that it's taking a toll on your body, and that, you know, you could also be impacting someone else within the family or friend. It's like a, what's the word? Like a snowball effect.
You start running programs, don't you? You don't realise that
you're
running.
Yeah.
So you built up certain defence mechanisms and you just carry them on throughout life. So the impact that it's going to have on you and your family is going to be detrimental in some way or another.
For sure, definitely.
And I think trauma is something that's individual. So, for instance, there are people go through different traumatic experiences and don't realise they've been through trauma. So, like being in a car accident, that's traumatic. That's trauma. Even a young child like their version of like a 3-year-old being shouted at, that's traumatic. Yeah. There's different things that, and trauma's again another scale. And sometimes I think people think that trauma is something that's like at this end, but it's those little things that keep building up that then create who we become and our experiences, and then create the element of the mental health.
Or even creating a small box in your mind and continuing to try to get on with your life, not realising that it's scurrying at the back of your mind to kind of get out. Then you realise when you get older that, you know, I was dealing with a lot.
Yeah.
That would bring me on nicely too. We were talking about mental health and the trauma and the effects that it has on our young people and our families. What kind of effect do you reckon it has on a wider community? I'll put that question to you, Carl, as well, because you do a lot of work with, like you said, single.
On a wider community, what I've noticed in the last sort of like, especially 5-10 years, a lot of guys, even down to females that I know of my age, have gone to the point where they're either on drugs or they ended up being sectioned in hospital.
Yeah.
And from that point then, it's not just that person that's being sectioned, it's their parents they live with, it's their children's mum that they live with, whoever it is that they're around, they then have to pick up what's ever left off this person's done. And especially with the younger children, especially like a lot of, over the last 10-15 years, the amount of youth centres and community centres that's actually been shut down and closed. Yeah. They've got nowhere to go now. So they're looking at these people on the street thinking, oh yeah, you know what, I can be like them. But not realising that going down that road's not really, you're either going to end up in a matter of 3 days. As I said, either in hospital, dead, or in jail. So it's affecting the whole community as well as just that individual now. And it's taking its toll on everyone. Children are not really, a lot of them are smoking skunk and whatever, and that has actually had a lot of problems with mental health. I've seen a lot of young people that they can just about string a sentence together.
Yeah.
So let alone go for an interview or go and seek help for anyone else, they're lost and they're just stuck in this cycle where they can't come out of it. For all they know is drugs on the street. So as I said, it's starting to affect everyone in the community.
And what about in your business, your service that you're providing? What kind of effect do you reckon it's having on the community around these families?
You definitely see the lack of motivation.
Yeah.
The lack of understanding, like thinking forward. So you have young people, like I don't even think, like even 15 years ago, like working in schools, like I've been working in schools for 20 years, but the mindset of some of the young girls, the young boys is like, it's like they've been here for longer than they have been because they are just surrounded by so much. They're seeing so much more than like when we were growing up, like hanging around the corner and going around like riding your bike. It was different. Riding bikes now is like riding bikes, but you might be robbing someone. Yeah. It's a whole...
or your bike, you might be getting robbed off you. Do you know what I mean? There's anxiety.
Or your bike, you can't really go with your bike and just leave your bike on the side. Whereas before, when I was growing up, I could leave my bike outside the shop and come back and it would still be there.
And you know as well, even just that, a lot of them won't go from one postcode to another.
No.
So they won't ride their bikes. I've been out with some guys and they said, well, we can't go down to that part. It's like, well, we're all together on a bike, but they just won't do it.
And what kind of effect do you reckon it's having on our young people's mental health? Do you know what I mean? You're scared to go from one part of the area.
Yeah.
Do you know what? It's so sad that a lot of the generation at the moment, they're at this desensitized place.
Yeah.
It's so out there that And then parents don't know how to support their kids with this because the kid might just seem fine, and it's just this ripple effect that's happening. And I think a lot of the time we're not pushing it until it's really close within our remit.
It's on your doorstep.
Yeah, it's on your doorstep. And I think it's something that we need to bring back in regards to community. It is affecting our young people's mental health because the fact that at the moment they're suppressing things that they just see now as their new norm, that we're going to see the ripple effects in about 3, 4, 5 years' time if we're not putting in the support.
This is not like normal thinking, is it? Like thinking about trauma, like we talk about the kids, like worried to walk around the streets or even ride their bikes. How do you know if you're experiencing trauma or your mental health is suffering? Like how would you know that? I'll put that to you, Mitchell, because you're a counsellor.
But the thing is, I think people don't necessarily know because you're not taught. We're not taught to understand ourselves, so we're not taught to, like, for instance, fear and worry is something you're not taught. If you think about a child, a child is a sponge. From the moment they come into this world, they know nothing. They literally learn everything through their environment. They learn to walk, talk, everything through the adults around them. And then it goes into school. So the environment gets wider, but it's still learning through everyone else. If you think about a child that may be getting in trouble at home, maybe you've got a 3-year-old going to touch the oven. What does the parent do? They shout. Yeah. But they're not shouting because they're angry. But
it's their fear.
It's fear.
And a response.
But the child is seeing anger. The child parents don't normally sit down with their children and say, actually, I'm worried. So even when a child's coming home late, a lot of times parents scream and shouting, but it's that they're scared and they're worried about their child. So a child even us as adults, if you think about it, you haven't learnt what fear looks like. You learnt fear from maybe watching a horror movie. So you think that's what fear is. So a lot of the thing is people don't realise how they're feeling because it's not something we've learnt.
Yeah.
So when you're going through something traumatic, what we've learnt is just keep going. Yeah. And if you can't keep going, then something's wrong. And then you don't want to tell someone, oh my God, but actually. So it's something we're not taught. So initially, people won't know that they're in a process of trauma or they're going through something. And it's not until they're sitting in a space where you say to them, you've been through this.
Yeah.
If someone else had come to you, you'd be like, wow. Like sometimes you sit there, people really don't realise that they've been through so much.
Yeah.
They're going through so much. Like
even when they're explaining it to you, what they've been through, they still don't realise that's what's causing that trauma.
You have to get them out you have to get them out of their own situation for them to then sit down and think, wow, like, yeah, that's...
I explain it myself as like being in a video. You know what I mean? When you start talking about things and then not everyone can understand it, and all of a sudden you're thinking, actually, did this happen to me? Like, is this my life? Carl, do you think that trauma differs like between men? Is there a difference with how, they experience it? Is it different?
I don't think there's a difference in how they experience it. I think there's a difference in how they process it and how they deal with it. Men in this society have been brought up to be a man. You've got to man up. You can't show your emotions. If you're out on the road, you've got peer pressure and you can't be seen to be the weak person, because if you're the weak person, you're the weakest thing, they're just going to get bullied. So with men, it is more of a, I can deal with this. I can deal with it. It's all right. No worries, no problem. You ask the man how he is. It's very rarely he would turn around and say to you, you know what, I'm okay, but really this is going on. Really that's going on. 9 times out of 10, yeah, I'm good. And that's all you hear from them. So as I said, it's not a matter of how whatever trauma it is, it's just a matter of we will deal with it differently. Whereas majority of the time, most women are more in touch with their emotions. Men block all their emotions out. So if they've had a bad childhood, their way of dealing with it is, right, I got to be the bigger man. I got to go gym every week. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to be shown to be the man. And yeah, I think that's the bad part about it, the detrimental part about it to how men deal with it.
But it's also changing.
Yes, a lot more men are starting to become more aware of what's actually caused problems. Because the thing as well, I know probably at least sort of like 10 men in the last 2 years that's come down with very serious illnesses or died or even committed suicide. And that's because they feel that there's no way out or there's no one to talk to or they can't go and talk to. So like within this men's group, the amount of men that I've seen come and break down because they've actually had an outlet to come and say, all right, you know what, I can say what I've got to say without no one questioning me or judging me. So yeah, as I said, it's like the way we do it.
And then also you've got, sorry to cut you, you've also got other men from all walks of life
Right.
there sitting down there.
It's
so then
not
it
just
kind of
men from the road or something
right,
like
so
that.
it kind of then makes it feel like, okay, if this man is talking about what he's gone through, then I can feel like I can talk.
Yeah.
And at least when they leave there, you can see their shoulders have gone, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Yeah, which is amazing. Sorry.
Even I've seen a lot more men coming for therapy. Like, I actually work with more men than females now. And before that, like, I've been a therapist for 9 years, and that it was predominantly the other way around.
Yeah.
So, like what you said, it's slowly changing because more people are talking about it. More people are coming forward saying, I'm not okay. And I think the more we kind of talk about support and not see it, like the word is strength. I think men think their version of what strong is and what their learned conditioning was strong is, I don't cry.
Because for a man, being vulnerable means being weak.
But actually,
but they don't see it's the strength.
Like when you're working with people and getting them to rechange how they see strength, because strength you actually look at what strength is. Strength is someone that can pick up weights, or like you can pick up a car. That's what actual strength is. But people have made that into a mental strength, and that's not what it is. Mental is being able to be vulnerable. It's being able to be brave and talk about how you're feeling and actually say, I'm not okay. And it's people don't. When I sit with people and I say to them, do you know how brave you are coming and talking right now? Because that is not easy. And then when they realize actually the way emotional strength and physical strength are two different things, and that's what we need to really just kind of change the learning of.
So how do we look after our mental health? How do you look, Mitchell, I'm going to ask you, how do you look after your mental health?
I look after my mental health I was actually talking about this yesterday with my students because I teach the level 3 therapy course, like counselling course. So one of the things I was saying is, I have to have therapy, obviously, because I'm a therapist. Well, you should. It's not that you have to. I choose to. So every now and again, I'll have a top up a couple of times a year. I have supervision as well. So I think within working, people don't necessarily know that they need support within your job, especially frontline workers. So within our company, we make sure everyone has supervision. Yeah, a place to reflect, a place to see how work is impacting them so that we don't have burnout.
Yeah.
I have my kids who are amazing. So like dancing, like in the mornings, we'll get up, we'll put music on. Like that's something I love doing, meditating. I'm also a coach, so I'm involved in things like coaching for myself. I get coached even though I coach. So I put myself in areas where I'm constantly developing my mind and stretching it and just learning who I am. But then I take time out. I make sure I'm around good people that push me to better myself, but also give me a space that I can just be myself.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Carl, what kind of things do you do to keep your mental health well?
It's mainly, do you know what? Getting creative. I could literally sit at home all day. I work with a lot of recycled wood. So I would sit there, burn a bit of frankincense or sage or something, and I'll literally have it sitting there beside me, put my music on and get creative. I ride a bike a lot, so I'll get up, I'll go cycle however many miles throughout the day just to sort of like get any form of sort of like aggression or anything out. Same kind of thing, meditation. I've got a good friend who's a psychotherapist, so same like you said, sometimes I'll have these groups, like the men's group, and the conversation will be so intense that it's like, I've got to get on the phone to her. It's like, you know what, and she'll break it down to me. And she'll like, right, so, but the thing is, where she'll do it is like how a life coach will do. They'll ask you the questions, so it will sit and make me reflect on things. Journaling is another thing sometimes I'll sit and do. I notice once I do put things down on paper, so when I'll sit and write, I'll come back and look at it and reflect, all right, you know what, at that time last year I was doing this. Oh yeah, I remember, I forgot I wrote these goals. But it's just another way of me getting it out.
Expressing it, yeah. Ashleigh, what kind of things do you do?
Obviously, I suffer from high level of anxiety, so me being around people socially helps that. My kids as well, although they sometimes they are the wall, but they are my all. They mould me to be the person I am, so they motivate me. Cleaning, putting on music, training. I've got so many courses I've done in the last 2 years. I can't even believe I've even completed them. So me just keeping busy and proactive. Me also being an ear for other people, is, another thing that kind of makes me feel like, okay, so then I know I'm making someone else's day better. Over the years, obviously, I've gone through quite a lot of trauma. Hence why when we was talking about certain things, I was not navigating it to me, but I was navigating it. But what I'm saying is, because I've had so much trauma and identified that I've had trauma, I've realised that certain parts of my body is affected. So I know that now, me being a high level of anxiety person, I know I get pins and needles in my cheeks. Sometimes I can feel like my heart is beating very fast. Sometimes I can get pains in certain places and realise that if someone else is around me that's feeling agitated, I'll kind of take on their pain as well. So I've just kind of just identified that if I explain myself a little bit more, be around people that I can open up to and know that they won't judge me or anything like that, that kind of puts me, settled. And like I said, just keeping busy as well also helps that stay at bay. But even now I'm speaking too much, so I'm starting to have some pins and needles in it. But it's just me just like, I don't know, I feel like I'm always the one that tries to help other people. So me then speaking about myself, I get a bit like, don't really like speaking about myself. I'd rather help everybody else. I'm more of a helper. Like, you're going through this, I'm trying to help you. Let me go and signpost you. Let me go and do this. So I'm happy to go and be busy in that way. But I feel like with my body, I've realised over the last couple of years that these are the things that happen to me when I'm feeling flustered or when I'm feeling worried or when I'm feeling stressed. Didn't know about it before.
So I'm hearing a lot of things. I'm hearing a lot of stuff to keep well. Like you'd do self-care, you'd meditate, you'd be in the moment, you'd be present, you'd be, taking that time out and looking and actually understanding what your body's going through. What other things do you reckon we can do, like in terms of seeking help and trying to understand trauma?
I think it's like last year I lost my granddad. So I knew that coming up to the anniversary of his death, I knew for me, I need a space. So I was very aware of the fact that why don't we always wait for the after fact? We don't learn about intervening early. And for me, it was like, okay, I know the anniversary is coming up. Let me go and take a space. I don't know how it's going to affect me, but I'm going to go have a space. And I think sometimes we wait until we're at the bottom and then we have to then climb up. Actually, sometimes if we can just intervene early, that can then change the course of 6 months for us, because we're supporting ourselves. So I think it's about being kind and knowing that actually, I don't think we know how to be kind to ourselves. Like Ashleigh just said, she's happy to do everything for everyone else, help, and distract herself from
what I go through,
what she's going through. So it's like looking at how you be kind to yourself.
Okay, so if you noticed your mental health was slipping and you wasn't feeling too great and you started withdrawing, whatever, where would be the first place or point that you would go to? Like, it's all very well going to workshops and doing all that kind of stuff, but like for basic things, like where do you go?
You can Google things. You can Google. I think people use Google for things that maybe don't benefit them sometimes, but you can actually Google because there's so many different organisations out there. You can go to your doctor. Yeah. You can go to local community centres.
Libraries, places like that. There's any reception area, you'll find a lot of information on different local services, and then they just, as you said,
we've also got coffee mornings at schools. The school would always have that information in the reception area to say that we've got coffee mornings on a Wednesday. If you're happy to come at 9:30, then you'll be able to talk about your well-being and if you want to share things. So they have that in the schools. They're starting to do that more.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Like even just speaking to the teacher.
That's a local thing that someone can go and do if they felt if they didn't want to go to a GP at the time.
And I think it's about knowing that you can go and look for things and it might not be the right thing for you. And I think that's the thing. I think people think, but if you go somewhere and it's not great, that's fine. You can go somewhere else. Or they might be able to tell you somewhere else. So I think it's just knowing that even if you go somewhere and it doesn't sit with you or it doesn't align with you, you can try again. Because not everyone's for everyone. Yeah. So it's just knowing that you might go to someone and think, oh yeah, I have to stay with that person and not like the experience. And then it's like, oh no, I'm never going to do this again. But actually it's just knowing that actually doesn't sit right with me. I'm going to look for someone else. And I think that's what it is. It's knowing that there are places out there, but not everywhere is going to align with you. And if it doesn't align with you, that's okay. Let's see where else I can go.
Also taking up a sport. Just going to just laze in a park and just reflect on natural earth and stuff like that. So maybe just taking off your socks and just grounding yourself. Just little things like that can also, be more natural lifting than having to really look for an organisation and stuff like that. Just for the people that may not want to do any of that, there are just normal alternatives. Just walk outside, just taking fresh air. Sun, anything.
No, I agree, because it can completely change your mindset. Do you know what I mean? You can be stuck indoors, getting all anxious, and you'll step outside, walk around the park, or go shop or something, and you'll come back fully refreshed.
And music as well. Music has always been
biggest
my thing. Even before I was dancing, it's just sometimes I put my frankincense on. Put
the
someone come in the room like this, but I'm like, listen, I need to purify my house.
Energy.
Even the cat comes in there. He's happy to be in there. I'm a piano now. I never used to know about it before, but the South African music just takes me somewhere else.
On the way down.
It's amazing. It's just, I don't know.
Because I think music can really lift your spirits, can't it? It can really
does.
change the way that you think. And it's, even my boys, they have, I've got little speakers all in my house. We have music on from the minute we wake up until we go to bed. And even just to have a shower, they're putting their tunes on. And I can hear him singing in there. Like, both of my boys do that.
But lucky enough, I've got a daughter that loves music to the point where she's actually made her own tracks now.
Wow.
Sometimes I go into the room and she'll be sitting there writing on the song. I'm like, what are you writing? She's like, I'm writing lyrics for my next song.
And that's another great way to express yourself and to be creative, like you say. So what's the one thing that you would change to improve mental health? Mitchell?
I would change the narrative around it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's got such a stigma. And even me, when I was younger, I think about being a therapist was never in my even mindset. I saw a therapist as Frasier from that program Frasier.
Yeah.
That was like, I can't be that. Like, do you know what I mean? So I think just changing what therapy looks like, what it is. I think people just think, I've got to have an issue. It has to be so that something's wrong with me. And I think actually no, like everyone needs a space. So I think changing support, not even just therapy, just what support looks like. Because even mentoring, I think it used to be known as like the bad kids in school. They need a mentor, and it'd only be the bad kids that get a mentor. And there's other kids that need that same support.
Just to give them a little boost, confidence boost or something.
That no one knows that maybe they don't have that one parent's not in the house and they just need someone to build their self-esteem. I think if we can reformat the language that's kind of come about with it, it's like the word victim. Everyone feels like the word victim means, oh, there's something wrong with me, it means I'm weak. Actually, it's the definition to associate the difference between the perpetrator and the person that the crime was committed against. It doesn't mean that you're weak. If we can change language, terminologies like strong, victim, all those things look like, I think that would be a great start.
But following on from that, I think changing the curriculum. Bring in well-being and mental health, bring in all their meditation, everything into schools. Because if they can learn to deal with their emotions from a young age, then leading up to whatever situation they go through, they're going to be better prepared for it.
What about yourself, Ashleigh?
I was going to say that, to be honest with you. Also just changing the mindset of how the government chooses to fund certain things. I feel like they need to give back into schools, they need to give them back into after projects as well, like say after school projects, but just in general, just stuff like that. I think we tend to think what we should have in schools and what schools should be, and oh my gosh, because it's curriculum, we need to make sure that it's maths, English and science. It's like, it's beyond that now. We're in 2022, we need to bring in well-being, we need to bring in mental health, we need to bring in all of these things from a younger age for the children to understand that this is normal, this is our new normal. You know, things like that.
Look at how many adults, if you really sit down and think about when adults talk about, I found myself, why can't we help you find yourself from young?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
it should start from young.
It should start from young, 100%.
Right, so we've gone through a lot of stuff today. We've answered a lot of questions, and I feel like we've come up with some good things. So we've spoken about, what trauma is, and do we necessarily know that we're in trauma? Like we've got our families grow up, we don't always know that we're in trauma. And if we do feel like we're in trauma, or our mental health has slipped, we can go to doctors, we can go to schools. We've got a lot of things that we can go to. How we look after ourselves as a kind of self-care, like sleeping, eating, being creative, getting outside. Like these are all great things that hopefully I think other people, hearing this podcast is going to be able to relate to, and hopefully they get some information out of it. Say from school, we need to be taught these things from young, what it feels like. But our kids need to be free and open to express themselves if they're not feeling great. So I'd like to thank you all very much.
Thank you
for coming. It's been really interesting. We could sit here for hours going on about this. It's such a huge subject anyway, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, thanks all for listening.
No, thank you.
Right, so thank you for listening to Uniting Against Violence, the podcast about reducing serious youth violence within our communities. We've put useful links to the things we've talked about today and this episode's description. If you found this episode useful, please subscribe, share and like on socials. at Uniting Against Violence. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can also email us at unitedagainstviolence@gmail.com. Reducing violence is a big topic, and we know we can't cover everything and every perspective. So if you're listening to this and thinking about something that we've missed, we encourage you to start conversations where you are. Together we can unite against violence. This episode was co-produced by Debbie Felix and Sarah Hutt. Guest speakers were Addy, Mitchelle, Greenaway and Ashleigh Jackson, with editing by Sarah Hutt, and the host was me, Charlotte Keith. Special thanks to our partners, Islington and Camden Councils, Public Health, the Parent House and Crux, also Jigsaw GC and Men in Motion, and our funder, the Mayor of London, as well as our guest speakers. Thanks for listening and tune in for our next episode.